There is a strange moment that arrives after getting something we wanted. The promotion arrives, business finally succeeds, a dream becomes real. For a little while, there is a relief, a sense of arrival, feeling that the long journey is over. And then, almost unnoticed, the mind begins to wander towards another goal, another achievement, another horizon. The thing we wanted so badly begins to feel ordinary, and something new takes its place, waiting in the distance, calling us forward. The ancient Greeks told a story about that feeling, a story about desire, about hunger, about a man who had already been given more than any mortal could hope for, and still wanted more. His name was Tantalus. Unlike many myths, this one begins not in suffering, but in abundance. Tantalus was a powerful, respected king, favored by the gods themselves. He was welcomed to Mount Olympus, the home of the gods. While ordinary mortals could only dream of such a privilege, Tantalus sat beside Zeus and the immortals. He ate their food, listened to their conversations. He was trusted with secrets no human was meant to know. Imagine that, to possess wealth, power, status, and friendship of the gods. But there is something dangerous about desire. When it is fed long enough, it begins to grow, and sometimes it grows beyond reason. Love and morality itself. The old myths tell several versions of Tantalus' crime, but the most famous is also the most disturbing. Tantalus decided to test the gods. He wished to prove they were not truly divine, or he wished to expose them. Stories never fully explain his motive, only his actions, and his actions were terrible. Tantalus took his own son, a boy named Pelops, and he killed him, then cut the body into pieces, cooked the flesh, and prepared a feast for the gods. Imagine the scene: the great hall, golden tables, laughter of immortals, and among them sat Tantalus, watching, waiting, observing every face, every expression. The entire feast was a test. Would the gods recognize what had been served to them? Or would they consume it like ordinary guests? The king, who had been given everything, now demanded something more, a proof, certainty, knowledge, something hidden that separates gods and men. Gods immediately understood, all except one. Demeter, distracted by grief, tasted a portion before realizing the truth. The feast ended. Gods gathered the remains of Pelops, piece by piece, bone by bone, and restored him to life. The son returned, but the father would not be forgiven. The judgment was swift. Tantalus was seized and cast down, far below Olympus, below the world of men, into Tartarus, the deepest region of the underworld, a place reserved for the worst offenders, place where punishments became eternal. And there the gods created a torment unlike any other. Not fire or torture, something far more subtle and perhaps far more frightening. Tantalus found himself standing in a pool of clear water. The water reached his chest, cool, fresh, and he was thirsty, desperately thirsty. So he bent down to drink. As his lips approached the surface, the water retreated. It slipped away, leaving only dry earth beneath him. Again he tried, but it vanished. Always present, never attainable. Above him hung branches heavy with fruits, pears, figs, olives. The branches sagged under their weight, and Tantalus was hungry. So he stretched out his hand, and at the very moment his fingers neared the fruit, a wind swept through the branches, lifting them beyond his reach. Again and again and again. Food above, water below, abundance everywhere, satisfaction nowhere. It is easy to focus on the punishment, but the deeper horror lies elsewhere. Thousands of years later, the details of the myth feel distant. The gods, underworld, fruit trees, ancient king. But the feeling remains strangely familiar, because most of us have stood beside our own version of those trees, not in Tartarus, but in this world. A young entrepreneur believes success lies just beyond the next milestone. The milestone arrives. For a moment, there is a celebration. Then attention shifts towards a larger goal, larger number, larger dream. The fruit moves a little farther away. A student imagines life will finally begin after graduation. Graduation arrives, then another destination appears. A better job, better opportunity, better future. The fruit moves again. Someone spends years saving for a home. The keys finally rest in their hands. Dream becomes reality. Another dream emerges. A larger house, better neighborhood, another horizon. The fruit moves again. The object changes. The desire remains. That is why the story survived. Desire rarely speaks in the present tense. It speaks in the future. It whispers, not yet, a little further, one more step, one more achievement. Then you will have enough. You will be satisfied. And that is why Tantalus is such a tragic figure. Not because he was denied abundance, but because abundance stopped being enough. The man who sat among gods could no longer see what he possessed. His eyes had already moved beyond it, towards something more, something forbidden. And in reaching for it, he lost everything. Sometimes I wonder about Tantalus standing in Tartarus, not reaching, not struggling, just standing there. For a brief moment between attempts, looking at the water, looking at the fruit, looking at the distance between himself and the thing he desired. The myth never tells us what he thought during those moments. Perhaps he felt anger or regret or nothing at all. That is why people still remember him. Because long after Olympus faded into legend, the question remains, how much would be enough? Not for a king, not for a man in a myth, but for us. The story never answers. It simply leaves us with an image. A man standing in a pool, fruit hanging overhead, water at his feet. Surrounded by abundance, still reaching for something just beyond his grasp. And somewhere across the centuries, we do recognize him.